And it's 10 mini games. I think that while yes, mini games in the context of this game don't really make sense, a separate area that could perhaps take place before the main game, like during that day, would be interesting. Where we explore the Pizzaplex while it's in day mode, and something like that would be really cool. Like being able to actually see the entire Pizzaplex without all those damn security bots and, you know, the risk of death. And we'd be able to play all the various minigames too. Like we could play the golf and laser tag and bowling and do whatever we actually wanted to do. It would be incredibly fun, and honestly combine this with the next number and we'd have one hell of a game. Plus, playing Gator Golf on an arcade machine is totally different than playing golf on the actual Monty course. I don't think the two courses are the same, which is unfortunate because the one in the actual Monty Golf area looks awesome. Kind of want that in real life, if I'm being honest. Is there like one of those like golf with friends? Is there like a custom map that is the Monty Gator Golf from the Pizzaplex? Because I'd play that. I don't have any friends. And at 9, multiplayer. Now, with a working Pizzaplex, there comes the idea that doing this with friends would be an amazing time. And honestly, this is one of the things we've been wanting for ages. While a multiplayer FNAF didn't really make sense before, with a working Pizzaplex, it would make the most sense. Being able to explore the Pizzaplex during the day with friends and even random people online would be awesome. And honestly, if it isn't in a FNAF DLC, I'm sure someone is going to make this happen in like VR chat or Rec Room or something like that. However, if this was in a real FNAF game, I think it would be the most beneficial. Even need VR to play in, despite what the name of the game would suggest. So it would be better for fans unless this came out as like a free DLC of some sort. Which honestly, considering how the game was released unfinished from what I've seen and heard online, a DLC that actually fixed things and gives us the rest of the game better be free. It better just be like an update or something. Still, multiplayer Pizzaplex would be perfect. And at 8, achievements. Now don't get me wrong, this game has plenty of achievements, and some pretty damn difficult ones at that. But seeing some more wouldn't be a horrible idea. I mean, it would give achievement hunters and completionists more to do, and it would give the YouTubers who've already done the game to death more to play. Which, let's face it, it will help everyone in the long run, okay? Creators will have more content to film, Scott will have more eyes on the series for whoever's taking over next, and fans will have something to watch while we just try to ignore the millions of different tasks that we actually have to do instead of watching YouTube. Plus, it'll make it worth the $50 price tag even more. I feel like it's basically a guarantee that if we do get some form of DLC that will be adding content, we'll also be getting new achievements, because like it's basically impossible to avoid that unless this DLC is just fixing what's broken and not actually anything new. Hopefully we get something new along with some bug fixes, but maybe they're taking the Skyrim approach to this so that 10 years from now they can release a FNAF Security Breach Anniversary Edition while they take 25 years to make the next FNAF game. I'm not salty at all. And at 7, fixes. Okay, I think it's safe to say that everyone who has played this game, either online or on their own, has experienced some form of glitch, or most likely multiple glitches. Markiplier experienced so many that there's actually a compilation of every time he ran into one. MapHat ran into glitches, Eddie VR and Juicy ran into glitches, even I did. I ended up glitching myself back into the daycare for crying out loud, not even intentionally. And not to mention the whole a load of areas don't like to load. And the animatronic AI, let's face it, isn't the best. So I think we're due for some bug fixes. And while they may have updated things a bit to improve the performance, I just played it last week and had some serious issues. So I think that if we're getting a DLC, especially one we may have to pay for, that we are going to need some bug fixes. Although there is no way that we should actually have to pay for these bug fixes. Hell, we shouldn't even have to pay for a DLC if it's just putting the rest of the originally intended game into our game. But I have a feeling that we are going to have to pay for that. And at 6, new ending. While yes, we already do have a canon ending to the game, I feel like there are other things going on, alright? Having a canon ending doesn't discount additional endings from being added, since they could help indicate to us what's going on in this game, or give us something else that could just be a fun thing to achieve, like a joke ending of sorts that gives us something to laugh about. Like if we got an ending that ended up just being the ending from FNAF 1, or Henry's speech from FNAF 6, just something fun that would also make sense, since if it doesn't, we all know for a fact that we would go absolutely ballistic and tear it to shreds. Or maybe we could get an ending where William Afton actually dies, even if it's not the canon one, so I can finally sleep soundly at night. Like, they have the death animations, right? Like, might as well put them to good use. Plus, him dying could be like my alarm in the morning, or like the lullaby I play to fall asleep, as long as it's not a jump scare noise. Because waking up to a jump scare may be a good way to make sure that you don't go back to sleep, but I'm kind of off the whole self-torture thing for the sake of everyone else. Yeah, been there, done that. No thanks. Halfway through, in at number 5, confirmation. Now, we have had a lot of theories about the various aspects of this game, but with all the conflicts, we know that there isn't really going to be a way to solve this without more information. So, what's really the deal going on here, alright? That question is preferably going to be answered if we get a DLC. I mean, Scott himself said that he likes to explain any misconceptions with games in the next one. He did with FNAF 4's date and the sister location code of 1983, and with FNAF VR's DLC to show that Glitch Trap was intended to be William with the purple car in the FNAF 4 house. So, we could reasonably see some confirmation of some ideas in a Security Breach DLC. Preferably the question of what's the relationship between Vanessa and Gregory, or if Gregory is meant to be a robot and or crying child. Those are probably some of the biggest questions that we really have and would help us solve some of the other issues. Because let's face it, how William came back yet again is of little consequence, and so are various other questions. The biggest ones that we have are about the pro and antagonists. Plus, I just want to be able to say that I've been calling Gregory being a robot for years. Actually, no, it's more like a year. Ever since the Funko statue came up. Okay, I called it. In at 4, Bonnie. Bonnie was missing from Security Breach, having been destroyed most likely by Monty, but perhaps getting to investigate Bonnie's disappearance and being able to change how things go with the Security Breach lineup would certainly be an interesting mission. If we were meant to like truly investigate it, that is, like turn the DLC into a bit of a detective game, I think that would really be a compelling and fun storyline. And from what I've seen, we all just want justice for Bonnie, especially since we want Papa Freddy to be reunited with Bonnie, since he seemingly really misses him, considering the dialogue from the first recharge station, when Gregory asks about Vanny and Freddy says, "There is no bunny at this Pizzaplex, not anymore," in a very somber way. Plus, like I've seen enough animatronic alligator thirst traps on TikTok that I kind of want Monty gone at this point. Like, yes, it was only the one thirst trap, okay, but it was for Monty. That's rough, man. I don't need that. One is too many. Oh, why do we live in a world where animatronic alligator thirst trap makes sense? Getting close to the end in number 3, post-game saving. Please, for the love of God, let us save the damn game after we beat it. Especially if the DLC has some decent story to it that involves us probably dying a bunch. Because I would rather not have to go through the whole 8-hour game again just to be able to play the DLC and be able to save. That's kind of insane. This is one of my biggest issues with the game. I get that it was for balancing purposes, but for real, this is something that needs to change. Freddy's power isn't even that good, so that alone can balance the whole he can see everything issue. Because his battery, even with the 2 upgrades, is trash. So for the love of God, please update the game to allow us to save or make it a feature in the new DLC. Even if it's like an option that we can enable in the menu or settings or something so that it can be our decision. Because I'm horrible at games, so I need to save. Especially since we can't save anywhere. Okay, we have to go to specific places to save. So that helps balance it too. Please. And ultimately, in at number 2, Chica's Feeding Frenzy. The arcade conspiracy gets its name from one of the duffel bags that you can find where we learn about something else that seems to be going on here. Quote from this arcade conspiracy note. Exit interview. They're working together. The arcades. They're hiding something. The glitches. Glitch them all at the same time, then the princess will recognize me. She's testing me. I am not yet worthy. The others are protecting it. Let me stay. I am so close. Just one more night, please. I can save the princess. Now it's clear that this seems to be referring to the Princess Quest games, however it doesn't seem like we have to glitch the Princess Quest games in order to win. We just have to beat them in order from 1 to 3 and then boom, we save Vanny. So what could this mean? Well, there are 3 other arcade machines that seem to be having mysterious glitches as well. The Balloon Boy World game that you can find in the theater, well in a secret room in the theater, Chica's Feeding Frenzy which won't turn off even when unplugged that you can find in the bakery, and Monty Golf A Arcade that according to its duffel bag shouldn't be in the mini golf area, but is. However, while you can play both Balloon Boy World and the Monty Golf game, Chica's Feeding Frenzy isn't an arcade cabinet. You can only access it using a mod that lets you cheat it in from the main menu. So adding this to the game could mean that there's something bigger going on than a simple DLC, which I would love. And finally, in at number 1, level 10 security access. Now, the highest level of security access that you can get is level 8. This just requires you to do every one of the little security room minigames. However, with level 8 being the highest you can actually achieve, it begs the question, why are there doors with level 10 security? Because if it's impossible to achieve, what's the point of giving them a security level at all? There are plenty of other doors in the game that are locked or out of order that don't open at all. So why not just make the doors that would have been level 10 just unopenable, okay? That seems more efficient to me. I don't have to walk up and get a giant thing on my screen that says level 10 access required. But, like, the thing is, they could be saving these areas for a potential DLC that would end up having to add 2 more security passes. Since if you actually end up no-clipping through the doors with level 10 access, there is nothing behind them at all. It would be nice to get some additional areas in a DLC, and like a separate area seems a bit unrealistic. This isn't Skyrim where you can add like a whole new world space or a dimension, so these level 10 areas would give us that extra sense of new content while also expanding the Pizzaplex in a reasonable way. We'd need 2 more security minigames though, which would have to be in additional areas, but I mean, hey, I'm willing to take that. In at 10, Arcade Conspiracy. That's right, I'm talking about this again. The Arcade Conspiracy gets its name from one of the lore duffel bags that we can find, where we learn that something else seems to be going on here. I'm gonna keep making that joke every single time. Quote from the Arcade Conspiracy note: exit interview. They are working together, the arcades. They're hiding something. The glitches. Glitch them all at the same time. Then the princess will recognize me. She's testing me. I am not yet worthy. The others are protecting it. Let me stay. I am so close. Just one more night. Please. I can save the princess. Now it's clear that this seems to be referring to the Princess Quest games. However, it doesn't seem like we have to glitch out those arcade cabinets in order to get their ending. We just have to beat them in order from 1 to 3, and then boom, we save Vanny. So what could this really mean? Well, there are 3 other arcade machines that seem to be having mysterious glitches, or there's something wrong with them as well. The Balloon Boy World game that you can find in the secret room in the theater, Chica's Feeding Frenzy, which won't turn off even when unplugged, that you're supposed to be able to find in the bakery, and the Monty Golf A arcade game that is, according to its duffel bag, shouldn't be in the mini golf area but somehow is. However, while you can play both Balloon Boy World and the Monty Golf game, Chica's Feeding Frenzy isn't actually playable. You can only access it using a mod menu that lets you cheat it in from the main menu. So adding in this arcade cabinet could mean that there's something bigger going on here than a simple DLC, which honestly I would love. And currently my my high score is still 14 for Monty Golf, where the lowest score is 13, so still feel pretty good about that. In at 9, Foxy's return. Foxy was also missing along with Bonnie this time around. However, with the inclusion of Roxy, who seems to be like the Sephora version of Foxy, we didn't really seem to miss them all that much, especially since Roxy also runs hella fast, basically just being a gender-swapped form of the lovable Fox. However, seeing Foxy make a triumphant return could be an interesting concept for a DLC. Maybe he was having a form of like lover's spat with Roxy, and then that's why she keeps telling herself that she's beautiful and the best because Foxy broke her heart or something. I don't know. I don't think that they would do that just because of all the horrific fan art that it would generate. Like, yeah, of course there is already fan art about this, but having it confirmed as canon would make everyone go absolutely nuts. God, I'm actually shaking at the thought of that. That sounds like a horrible idea. Anyway, lots of fans have already modded or put Foxy into the game some way or another, so clearly it's an in-demand idea. And honestly, if we did something like the whole missing animatronics showed up for a full-on battle royale with the new ones, I think that would be epic as hell. Freddy Mech for the win. In at 8, Secure and Neutralize. Now, the Secure and Neutralize concept comes from Knitter user The Silver Sea, and how they describe it is basically a pacifist route, where instead of playing through the story and destroying the other animatronics, you'd instead be able to befriend them and remove them from the game, basically. At certain points in the animatronic boss fights, you'd be able to choose whether or not you commit to the destruction of the animatronic, and if you choose not to, the pacifist route would start. After choosing not to kill, you'd strategize about how to take the animatronic down, which would already be determined in the story, but like for story purposes you'd have to figure it out. Maybe Freddy would offer a suggestion. Then you'd remove the CPU that Afton is using to control the animatronic out of their back, and the animatronic would reboot. After rebooting, they'd have no memory of what happened, and then you'd be able to lead them back to Rockstar Row and put them in their changing station or green room for the rest of the game. This concept is actually pretty interesting, and if you want to read more about it and get more in detail that I can't actually get into in this video because it's a top 10, the link for this will be in the description if I can remember. If not, yell at me in the comments. And it's 7 VR. I don't care how many of you are against it, I am actively hoping that, like how Help Wanted got a flat screen version, that Security Breach will get a VR version or port or whatever you want to call it. Is it likely? No. Do I want it? Yes. This game was pretty fun normally, okay? But in VR, I think that this would be one of the most intense and exhilarating VR games that I've played. Aside from Blade and Sorcery, but that's just because it awoke something within me. Some of the cutscenes would need to be modified, probably by giving us a third-person perspective instead of the normal first-person. But other than that, I think it would be incredible. Like, imagine playing Phaser Blast in VR against Mommy Chica. Bro, all the Vanny Simps would let themselves get killed. And then I could have some fun walking around as Freddy, pretending to be invincible and punching animatronics. I really want this, okay? It may be complicated to do, but I'm willing to wait, damn it. But exploring the Pizzaplex in VR is kind of goals. I know that there are like VR chat and rec room maps that let you do this, but they're not the real deal, man. Combine this with some of the other ideas on this list and oh boy, would it be an amazing experience. Whoa, doggies. I know that they said they wouldn't do it, okay, but Scott says a lot of stuff that he doesn't mean, so. And at 6, Daycare Redo. The Daycare Redo DLC concept comes to us from FNAF Wiki user Glitched Morals, saying that they came up with a side quest with benefits called the Daycare Redo. Quote from the post, here's how it works. Instead of being pushed out of the slide when attempting to go back into the daycare after being banned, there is an option to talk to the son. Gregory can apologize for breaking the rules and ask if there is anything that he can do to make it up to him. Son will send Gregory on a few missions to do certain things, like bring back a certain item to him or clean up the place structures that he knocked down. They will need access to a cleaning or janitor pass, which can be obtained from a present box. And if Gregory does all of these missions, he will have Son's trust back, which will result in a few benefits. He will have full access to the daycare again, which will have extra secrets and collectibles to actually have the full access be worth it. Play structures are now new hiding spots for hiding from animatronics. You'll have access to a new room that is the daycare storage room. In that room is extra structures and toys that are found in the daycare. Presents and duffel bags will also be in this room. Son will give Gregory a daycare night pass, which will result in the moon no longer chasing Gregory anymore, even when the lights are off. And Son can be interactable, and with him, Gregory can watch different movies in the Fast Theater, play hide and seek, and other mini games. Honestly, this seems like a pretty solid idea, and actually a pretty interesting one, so good job, Glitched Morals. The link to this post will also be in the description, if I can remember. Halfway through into number 5, multiplayer. Now, with a working Pizzaplex, there comes the idea that doing this with friends would be an amazing time. And honestly, this is one of the things we've been wanting for ages. When a multiplayer FNAF didn't really make sense before, a working Pizzaplex would make the most sense. Being able to explore the Pizzaplex during the day with friends and even random people online would be awesome. And honestly, if this isn't in a FNAF DLC, I'm sure someone's going to make this happen in VR chat or Rec Room or something like that. I mean, like, there's already a mod, but that's where you play as animatronics, and I just want a whole load of kids running around the Pizzaplex, you know, being able to play all the games. However, if this was in the real FNAF game, I think it would be the most beneficial. However, VR chat is a free game that you don't need VR to play, despite what the name would suggest, so it would be better for fans unless this came out as like a free DLC of some sort, which honestly, considering how the game was released unfinished, a lot. A DLC that fixed things and then actually gives us multiplayer would actually be nice if it was free, especially if it's just fixing issues, okay? Anyway, a multiplayer Pizzaplex would be perfect. And at 4, daytime mode. Being able to explore the Pizzaplex during the day is something that I think we can all agree we'd love to see. Being able to actually play these games without the ominous threat of death would be a great addition to this game. I want to play laser tag without having to worry about Chica chasing me, okay? Unless she's chasing me in a romantic way because someone wanting me that bad is kind of goals. But for real, the ability to just mess around the Pizzaplex during the day would certainly be fun. No restrictions, just full passes or whatever. Or maybe we have to earn tickets to pay for the passes by playing the various arcade games. I think that would be pretty damn cool. Combine this with the multiplayer mode and this would be crazy. Although I guess multiplayer mode would kind of imply that it's during the day since the story doesn't really allow for multiplayer. So let's just assume the daytime mode would just be you on your own. The single player daytime experience, which sounds like a really bad sitcom. Like, not one that's so bad it's good, but just like a bad sitcom. Mostly because of the name. Getting close to the end, and in number 3, Burn Trap. With everything that was left up in the air about Burn Trap's ending, us being unsure whether he's actually dead or if the blob decided to save him, getting to see more of Burntrap or even more of Burntrap's story, maybe some explanations as to what happened in between the games, or maybe even some potential backstory to the character of William Afton, would surely be greatly appreciated by the community. If there's anything that I've learned by talking about this series every day for a year, the community doesn't like talking about any theory that isn't what they've already believed to be true, and they'll consider these theories canon and proven despite them not actually being confirmed. So, literally anything getting confirmed about this character would be a win in my eyes, especially if we finally get to see William officially die on screen. You have no idea how much I would love to watch William finally kick that sweet, sweet bucket on screen. Huh. Better than any orange YouTube video ever. But ultimately, in at number 2, Inspector Gregory. Bonnie was missing from Security Breach, having been destroyed most likely by Monty, but perhaps getting to investigate Bonnie's disappearance and being able to change how things go with the Security Breach lineup would certainly be an interesting mission. If we were meant to truly investigate this, turning the DLC into a bit of a detective game, I think that would be a really compelling and fun storyline. And from what I've seen, we all want justice for Bonnie, especially since we want Papa Freddy to be reunited with Bonnie since he seemingly really misses him. Considering the dialogue from the first recharge station at least, when Gregory asks about Vanny, and Freddy says, "There is no bunny in this pizzaplex, not anymore," in a very somber way. Plus, I mean, I've seen enough animatronic alligator thirst traps on TikTok that I kind of want Monty gone. Yes, it was only the one thirst trap, but it was for Monty, okay? It's rough, man. Well, okay, there was only one for the actual animatronic. There was more for cosplays of the animatronic, but dear God. And finally, in at number 1, Choose Your Guardian. I'm pretty sure you all wanted this, and I'm pretty sure it's the thumbnail for this video. Currently, the Choose Your Guardian concept is the most popular idea for a Security Breach DLC. Well, at least from ideas that came from fans. The idea behind this was that you'd play through the story again, but this time you'd choose which animatronic would come to defend you instead of Glamrock Freddy. The post on Reddit by user Space Bear suggested Chica and Roxy, with Roxy carrying you instead of hiding inside her stomach. However, unfortunately, I don't think that this idea is very likely. Despite jokes in the Help Wanted DLC that the DLC was not a canon addition to the game and it had no hidden intent or purpose, this was not the case. We know that the DLC is canon and had hidden intent and purpose. However, this DLC, the Choose Your Guardian DLC, would cause too much chaos to the story to actually work well. It would just make too many things confusing, and there is no way that they would make a non-canon DLC in my mind. But I do like this idea, and I think that it should be a mod. We can probably make it work in some way, I'm certain of it. You'd need the voice lines, but I'm pretty sure there are some fans that would be able to recreate the voice for the mod. Getting the actual voice actors would probably be a little too expensive for a mod, but yeah, unfortunately I don't think this is very likely, but hey, maybe it's a good mod. Now, as I just mentioned, Roxy's body isn't really all that big, and while Gregory is able to fit his entire body in a hole that is just over 14 inches tall in Glamrock Freddy, I still don't know how that works, I don't think that he'd be able to fit himself inside of Roxy's tiny torso. But considering how she's the fastest animatronic, sprinting at you when she sees you or even hears you after her destruction, it's safe to say that maybe the mechanic would instead be riding on her shoulders, which would make for better movement speed since she wouldn't have to worry about crushing you while you're inside, but also adding more vulnerability since the other animatronics would be able to see you on her and would follow. This would also make for way too much fan art of Gregory riding Roxy, more than there already is. Honestly, you search up Glam Rock and you see Get Your Glam Rocks Off, and I wish I was kidding. But the question is, how would Roxy be the one who glitches instead of Freddy? Since the story seems to be, at least currently, that Freddy glitches because the spirit of Michael senses a little brother in Gregory, or maybe even senses that Gregory is his little bro. But assuming that that's just a theory, how would they work this into the actual, canon? Gregory can't really hide inside Roxy's stomach after all, so how would he be able to get into her green room? My best guess would be something having to do with her insecurities. Maybe Gregory overheard her and then followed her into the green room to help her. Or maybe since he still needs to be scared of Vanessa, he turns Roxy against Vanessa by saying that the security guard is calling her ugly and saying that Cheek is the prettier animatronic. At least Roxy would be down for destroying the other animatronics in that case, as long as Cheek she gets to stay pretty. Monty's gameplay would seemingly be the most like Freddy's, with his wider torso allowing for Gregory to hide inside. But really, I can't see this character being sympathetic towards a kid at all. Like, he's got a very rockstar attitude, and I'd only see him helping Gregory if Gregory was doing stuff for Monty, you know? Like, if Monty was decommissioned or something by Vanessa for destroying his green room, and then Gregory got him working again. That's really the only way I would see these two working together, although this would come with the benefit of Monty's claws already working. Unless for story and gameplay reasons they gave that upgrade to Freddy and said that he needed it to hold on to the microphone better or something, or maybe like turn it on, something like that. Either way, I don't think Monty would mind that, especially since he would get to destroy Freddy. Something that we see from both the van ending and in the last level of Monty Golf, he's more than fine with doing. He might not want to hurt Chica or Roxy because of course every great rock star needs their backup singers, but he would certainly help you with Freddy. Which brings up the problem of where Freddy's boss battle would be. Obviously he'd be the other option between Chica and Roxy, since Roxy's eyes are too overpowered to keep for the long haul. However, Freddy seemingly doesn't have his own area. Chica has the kitchen, which is where her battle takes place because she loves pizza, but she also has Mazer Size. Monty has a mini golf course, and Roxy has a racetrack. So where would Freddy have his boss battle? My best guess would actually be Phaser Blast. Sure, we have to avoid Chica while we play, but assuming we're playing with someone else as our guardian, it would make the most sense for Freddy to be here. Plus, the disassemble ending could be very useful here, since we could use the staff bots Vanny uses in that ending as like our way of destroying Freddy. Maybe he'd end up knocking the remote down or something, and then we could take it and say disassemble Freddy, something like that. That might cause some issues with the whole Chica thing, because then you have to go to the Bonnie Bowl to get the whole Monty mix to crush Chica. But I mean, we could move Monty's mix into Monty Golf, because I feel like that would also make sense. Chica would have to operate in much the same way as Roxy would in this fictional scenario, with us most likely being carried around on her shoulders. And while she may not be as much of a sprinter as Roxy, she can certainly move quickly. If we're giving difficulties to the animatronics, I think that Chica would definitely be like the hard mode out of all of these, since she doesn't really have any unique abilities. Maybe the voice box would be included, but that's something needed to unlock the main boss room, so it would kind of break the story and make it way easier. So maybe instead they could work it out so Freddy would have like a good voice box that we could steal, so that maybe Chica would instead soothe the animatronics, or maybe after we damage him, his voice box goes from good to broken, and then it just screeches like the original. But other than that, I don't really know how this would work. Like, I don't know how this would be different. Like, maybe instead of the whole screeching Chica's ability, she'd be able to move us around in a hiding spot, like if it had wheels, since there are more wheels than doors. I mean, since Chica loves food, seeing her move around garbage or recycling bins may not be an unusual thing. Like, maybe she's just bringing it back to snack on in her green room. So if we were hiding in one of the various bins, maybe while inside we could call her over by pushing Q, and she would end up like grabbing on to the hiding spot and kind of like pushing us around, as long as there was enough space for it. So obviously like smaller ones would be more maneuverable, but also more suspicious. I don't know. Obviously other animatronics could still inspect the hiding spot while she's holding it, and if Vanessa saw her, she would absolutely inspect it. But other than that, I think that the whole mechanic where she pushes you around would be an interesting addition, and it would make Chica a unique guardian and set her apart from Roxy, since at that point they were kind of the same thing. Although it would certainly make things interesting if we're all like, oh yeah, mommy Chica's pushing around Gregory in a stroller. Oh no. Obviously, if this were the actual DLC, Freddy would just end up replacing whatever animatronic was guarding you within the story. So if you chose Roxy, he would have the eyes, etc. Like, they'd have to find a reason for it, but I mean, like, in my humble opinion, it seems wrong if Freddy isn't the one protecting you. But this absolutely would be a fun DLC concept. But hey, if they don't do it, we can always mod it into the game, right? Just like swap a couple models around and then you're good to go. There are also some seriously dope voice actors out there who love the series, and I'm sure they would want to help out. Or maybe some voice actors are looking to add stuff into their portfolio so they can get more work, who would be willing to help. I mean, like, maybe the Freddy voice could be fairly easy. TikTok has been doing it as a trend, and if TikTok can do it, I'm sure we can do it for a mod. So like, maybe it's not such a long shot for a mod after all, like I originally thought. But why am I suggesting a mod though? Because unfortunately, I don't think that this DLC concept is going to get made, okay? I hate to say it, but while it is an incredible and extremely fun idea, the DLC that they do add to this game would most likely be canon to the main series of games. In fact, we haven't had a main series game that wasn't canon. And despite the last DLC claiming it was nothing more than a festive holiday themed add-on with no hidden intent or purpose, we know better than that. And making it so that any of these characters could protect you would probably ruin the story in some aspects and make the next game harder to set up. And while FNAF 4's Halloween DLC at the time that it came out was claimed to be non-canon with the exception of Nightmare Balloon Boy, Nightmare Eon and Nightmare Mangle did end up making it into Ultimate Custom Night, which would mean that Crying Child would have seen them. So eventually, even if they weren't at the time, they did end up becoming canon eventually. Meaning that since this would mess up at least like the story that we understand from the games, with the exception of like the canon ending, but like then again it's still kind of weird. If we're right or even on the right track about what the story is, I don't think that this would honestly be possible. It would honestly kind of come out of nowhere. It would kind of come out of left field story-wise, unless they end up making it a DLC because everyone is asking for it rather than a DLC that will actually help answer some of the questions we have from the game, since they might want to keep things vague and open-ended for whoever is taking over next. But I guess then again, we'll see when they announce a DLC, if they announce a DLC. I'd still prefer a daytime mode though, or even secure and neutralize from the DLC top 10 list. And at 10, non-canon. A lot of people were suggesting a simple fix that would have all of this make sense, and it would be just to make the DLC non-canon. And honestly, I don't think that that's even possible. Even if expressly stated that it was non-canon, after the last DLC claimed that it was nothing more than a festive holiday themed add-on with no hidden intent or purpose, and then giving us a whole load of hints towards the next game, none of us would trust Steel Wool or Scott when they said that. No matter what, okay, we would still consider the DLC probably canon. And maybe that's something that we could actually deal with, since after all there is only one true ending to the game, assuming this doesn't take place before or after the story and we still play as Gregory in the game. So maybe this would actually still be possible, but any endings we end up getting wouldn't be the true ending still. And maybe the true ending would be impossible to get without Freddy. I mean, we could just play through the game until 6 AM and then be forced to leave and not have the option to stay. And at 9, New Kid. The DLC could easily be explained away by making us play as a new kid who ends up getting stuck in the Pizzaplex for another reason, which would also explain why we aren't being protected by Freddy, who at this point would have run away with Gregory. They could have rebuilt Roxy's Raceway or maybe just have it off limits, and we could play through again using another character as our guardian, at least if they wanted to keep it canon. It would also show us that what Gregory fell into was intended on being a trap, hence maybe why Vanessa was sus of Freddy, but then after he gets out of parts and service, she doesn't dismantle him again, since that would make Gregory trust him. This could have been how all the children went missing, and this would have shown us that, but Gregory was the first one to make it out alive. This idea came from YouTube user Dank Meme in the comments of the Choose Your Guardian video, and that's where most of these ideas actually do come from, but if they're suggested by multiple people, I can't really show all of the comments, but from what I saw, Dank was the only one who suggested a new kid in a rebuilt pizzeria. And at 8, Sun and Moon. Multiple people were also saying that if this was a thing, they would want the sun or moon animatronic to protect them, which is just a whole new level of trauma. Like, that thing needs like a talking to by Chris Hansen or something, cause it's a creepy, like the fact that he will actively pick this 4-year-old sized kid out of a ball pit and then keep dragging you back to the same spot so you can't leave him is just a whole new level of crazy. Like, I get that he's an animatronic and he's not really capable of being a pedal bear, but like, come on. You have to admit, this guy has some creeper vibes, and I'm not talking creeper aw man vibes, I mean like prison predator vibes. Like, why would you want this thing to protect you? I guess we have to protect our investments, but like in this context, that's absolutely terrifying. Plus, Sun and Moon doesn't really have a reason to leave the daycare, and when they're in their moon form, they just want to put you back to bed. Okay, damn, I didn't actually realize how really creepy this thing was. I mean, like, his first words are naughty, naughty boy. So it should have been a dead giveaway. And at 7, Disguised. YouTube user Canis Rufus Lupus I like that name. YouTube user Canis Rufus Lupus suggested in the comments that instead of hiding inside the animatronics or riding on their shoulders, that instead Roxy and Chica could throw disguises over us in an effort to conceal our identity. As they put it, quote, "My suggestion was that Gregory would follow closely behind Chica or Roxy in disguise when you're controlling them. Chica would toss a cupcake blanket over the boy's head with eye holes, while Roxy would would stuff the boy into a giant foam finger that says you're number one. The security robots would be blind to him, which I think it's actually a really interesting idea, and that would certainly make for some hilarious moments. Like, imagine Roxy lifting up the cupcake blanket randomly while you're just like chilling with Chica, and then boom, you're done for. But also, this would kind of defeat the whole like power mechanic that they added to kind of nerf the whole glam rock mech thing in the first place. So I unfortunately don't think that they would go with this seemingly absolutely amazingly hilarious idea. But good thinking, Candace, I'm proud of you. That's outside the box, I like it. And its 6th Bonnie Bowl battle. I mentioned last time how Freddy doesn't really have a section for a boss fight, since most of the Pizzaplex is named after other characters. Roxy's Raceway, Chica's Mazercise, Monty Golf, etc. But a few commenters had the idea that maybe Freddy could have his boss battle inside of Bonnie Bowl. I'm guessing because he was mourning the loss of Bonnie. I mean, it would kind of make sense, but the bowling alley doesn't really have much of a boss arena vibe. It doesn't really have the ability to house a boss battle, seemingly. Like with Monty, the boss battle made sense, at least in FNAF's way of making sense. But Freddy in a bowling alley? How are we gonna stop him like that? Get him to step on a bowling ball and fall backwards? I mean, it took Monty falling off a catwalk and getting smacked in the face by by a giant bucket for him to actually get destroyed. So how would a bowling alley with no net full of hanging bowling balls actually be able to help us beat him? I don't know. It's a nice idea, and I like the thought process as like an homage to Bonnie, but I unfortunately don't think it would work. Halfway through, into number 5, Guardian Vanessa. The idea that Vanessa could be your guardian is interesting, but considering how she is also the main antagonist, you'd be left alone for various parts of the game, which I mean is already the case with Freddy since he can't enter places like the West Arcade. But since, thanks to the CDs at the end of the game, we know that Vanessa knows there's something going on with her and that she knows Glitchtrap is watching, I don't really think that she'd try and help us in any scenario. Like, hell, if she was really trying to do her job, she would have opened the gate at the beginning of the game and then went on the intercom to tell us to get the f out. Plus, she locks us in the lost and found room, or security room, or whatever it is, knowing full well that her other half could take over at any moment and come after us. And look what it does. It takes over her and comes after us. She also says that she called the cops, but she clearly didn't. So I don't think Vanessa would be down to help us, unless she was doing it to try to be selfless when she's being controlled. But even if she was, Afton could take over and then just grab you instantly, so. And at 4, Custom Night. An idea brought to us by commenter Barbarian Goose. Quote, if anything, Steel Wool should add a custom night where you choose your guardian as like a little fan service with the main DLC. And I think that this could be a good idea. Not making the DLC revolve around that, but maybe making a small section where you play as another animatronic guardian. Or, but maybe they each get you out before the doors close at 12, or something similar so it wasn't the full game again, because if it is the full game, it's not a small section. Because if we're being honest, like having to do this again for the whole game would be an absolute nightmare, and they already released the main game unfinished. So I think that a small section of story without the open world thing would be a nice way for fans to understand what would happen to the story if the various characters were our guardians instead of Freddy. Or maybe even as like a nightmare segment or something. Like if you choose to leave the Pizzaplex at the end, instead of just getting killed by Vanny, we'd also have a nightmare about if one of the other animatronics was guarding us. Maybe an unplayable cutscene or a small playable section, just to make the fans who want this idea to happen happy. But again, it would increase the whole Gregory writing Foxy art just a little too much in my eyes. Getting close to the end, in number 3, Phaser Blast battle. While some people were saying that Freddy's boss battle would be at Bonnie Bowl, others suggested a battle at Phaser Blast. There, are you happy I said it right for once? But I like saying Phaser, so leave me alone. Which does kind of make sense, since it's seemingly the only location aside from the Pizzaplex itself to really be connected to Freddy directly. And while you do have to go there for the story as well, I guess it's possible that they add a boss battle in here instead of playing the normal Phaser Blast game. Like, you know, like how they had it when like Chica was running through there, but instead this time it could be Freddy and we had to handle him. It wouldn't be as awesome of a fight as Freddy would really deserve, but it would kind of make sense given that it would really feel like the animatronics were trying to stop you. But it would really make one section of the game easier, just like if this battle was in Bonnie Bowl. Since we have to go here for the story, getting the Phaz camera would just be easier in the long run, since it doesn't end up in a boss battle. In my opinion though, the Phaser Blaster is better, so maybe it would be a way to balance the game easier. And number 2, character endings. I feel like the concept of additional endings was already obvious, but I did see multiple comments suggesting character-specific endings, which makes a lot of sense. I mean, in the end, there would still only be one canon ending, so maybe this kind of DLC wouldn't really do much harm. But with everyone reading into everything so much, I still think that this would cause more problems than it solves, like I said earlier. However, the character's specific endings, while not being the canon ending, could help provide more insight into the canon of the actual story. Like if Monty's ending revealed a bit about what happened to Bonnie, or if Roxy ends up breaking down emotionally or something. I don't know how she contributes to the main story. And I think that Chica's ending would just be her getting all the pizza of her dreams. And of course, having me by her side, the man of her dreams. I don't know why all of you are suddenly like so for Roxy, but Chica's my main girl, and I'm not letting anyone take that away. Not even you, narrator, alright? You guys can have the self-centered, egocentric Roxy, because that's not the Afton virus doing that. That's just the personality of the animatronic. So you can deal with someone who loves the mirror more than they love you, and I'll be with someone who loves pizza just as much as I do. It's called priorities, okay? And finally, in at number 1, Roxy's hair. Now, an overwhelming amount of comments were saying that Gregory could hide in Roxy's hair instead of chilling on her shoulders. But they didn't know how he would hide in Chica. So I figured it was a worthy number 1 spot. I mean, like, Roxy does have long hair, right? Well, yes, but the thing is, I see multiple issues with this that just make this idea seemingly impossible to me. Firstly, if Roxy's hair is meant to be like actual flowing hair and strands in universe, there would be nothing for Gregory to really hold on to unless he was holding onto her neck or something, which would be an interesting mechanic, since if you're around the other animatronics for too long, maybe they'd see Gregory's arms or feet poking out from behind you. But also, have you ever had hair in your face? Whether it's dog, a significant other, your own, having hair in your face is one of like the worst feelings ever, especially if it's unwanted. And Gregory wouldn't want that, assuming that he isn't simping for Roxy like all of you nasty motherfuckers are in the comments, okay? Y'all are simping harder than Will Smith. That's all if her hair was actual individual strands, but looking at the gameplay, it doesn't seem to be. It's multiple different seemingly plastic long triangles that end up making up her hair, and I doubt that you'd be able to climb inside that without cutting yourself up more than Afton in a spring-lock suit. So unless they just didn't want to simulate Roxy's hair physics, I don't think that this is possible. Unless you are all saying this because it's like a kink thing, which is unfortunately very possible. Firstly, based off of what we're expressly told in-game, it could actually be possible. All we really know is that Bonnie ended up going into Monty Golf around 4 AM, and then that was the last place he was seen. Quote from the duffel bag, security report, 12:24 AM. Bonnie is seen leaving his green room in Rockstar Row heading east towards the atrium. 2:40 AM, Bonnie enters the East Arcade. 4:12 AM, Bonnie enters Monty Golf. That's the last of a repaired Bonnie that we ended up seeing, since in another bag we learned, quote, with Bonnie out of commission, we are making Monty the new bass player. Parts and service has already done the proper adjustments. This could be a good thing. Monty could be even more popular than Bonnie. Which, in combination to the fact that Bonnie was last seen in Monty Golf, suggests that Monty is the culprit behind Bonnie's destruction. Which is odd, in my opinion, because like we know Monty loves smashing things, and like that's not the weird part about this. My thought is, where was Monty chilling before he moved into Rockstar Row? Like, we don't see any real living quarters in Monty Golf, and the only other animatronics that we see outside of the core 4 is the daycare attendant, who has his own room above the ball pit. So, where could Monty have been staying if not in Rockstar Row? Anyway, if Monty is to blame for the destruction of Bonnie, we could see Bonnie come back in the DLC. But unfortunately, it wouldn't be really to get revenge on Monty, since we see that Monty does indeed face justice. At least, justice if he was guilty for the crimes. And if not, then it was just destruction. There is another theory, however, that could counter this point if it's true. The idea that Glamrock Bonnie's endo was used to create the new body that Afton inhabits in the true ending, Burn Trap. Now, we've covered this in another video, link to that is in the iCard, but in that video we came to the conclusion that the entire endo wasn't used, since the shoulders on Burntrap aren't wide enough compared to the male Glamrock endos. And the fact that Afton's muscle fibers, or nerves, again, still not quite sure what they are still connected, would prove that it's the old suit. But there are sections where the fibers are blocked, like on the left foot and left arm. Both things that he was missing, or were more damaged at the time, while in his scrap trap form, seemingly suggesting that perhaps these specific parts came from Glamrock Bonnie instead of the whole endoskeleton. Maybe they were the only parts that they could use after Monty had his fun, maybe they cut Monty off from destroying the rest of him, hence why he starts smashing his green room. We're not sure, and frankly the latter is just speculation, but it's still interesting. Originally, I was against the whole Glamrock Bonnie endoskeleton thing because, well, frankly, the body in the suit kind of disproved it for me. But I think I might have found a way to make it work. Like I said, looking at the model, I'm still not 100% sure. But if this was the Glamrock Bonnie endo, again, it would need to have broader shoulders, and actually it would need to be shorter. Unless they're like using the female endo for Bonnie, which wouldn't really make sense, so I don't think that they would, especially if they're gonna give Bonnie shoulder pads. But I mean, like, even if we scale them so they're the same height, the endos, when posed the same way, and I'm comparing to like an actual endo, not the Glamrock Bonnie fan art, they still don't line up. And I mean, there are similarities between the two, of course, but there aren't enough where I can even call this above 50%. There are also issues of, again, the muscles being woven throughout the body. If it was just the head, I would understand, since they could have just put the old head on a new endo body, but with the muscles throughout the rest of the endo, that's too intricate to have been placed there. Even if they were, they would be dangling. They would just be hanging out, unless they had been stuck there like with super glue. Because like they were deep in there, because you know, he was shoved full of machine parts. So yeah, if Afton was going to transfer his head to a new endo, it wouldn't come with the rest of the body bits. So yeah, I'm gonna go with they added the arm and the leg on after the fact. But what would that mean for Glamrock Bonnie? Well, it would mean that if decommissioning Bonnie was a part of Vanny's plan to resurrect Afton, there would really be no Bonnie available that you could bring back, since he would really just be decommissioned. And while the other animatronics do come back, losing a leg and an arm is worse than your legs, your eyes, or just being smashed, since he wouldn't really be able to hop around on one leg despite being a bunny, and since he only had one arm, he wouldn't really be able to crawl like Monty does. So, I mean, I suppose the DLC could instead just be replacing Monty with Glamrock Bonnie, but that's achievable with mods, so there isn't really a point to making that a paid DLC, since we would all just opt into modding the game for that experience. Plus, certainly the model they use for Bonnie wouldn't end up being the one added to the mod instead of the current one. So at this point, we'd need a solid DLC to actually make it worth it. With that being said, however, Bonnie being decommissioned might actually impact his presence in the game, but not to the story, since the DLC could be, like I've suggested before in other videos, a series of missions that involve us investigating his disappearance, possibly as a favor to Freddy, since he really seemed to miss Bonnie. Like, he was pretty sad when he was saying that there's no Bunny in this Pizzaplex, not anymore. That was my Freddy impression. Maybe it would even be because Freddy was already investigating it or something like that, saying that he knows Monty's been giving him side-eye and wanted to know if that Monty would be coming after Freddy next, since after all, Monty is stronger than Freddy, at least until we break Monty's brains in with a giant bucket filled with balls, which is a total hazard, by the way. I mean, like, come on. The giant bucket that we use to crush Monty is such a issue for health and safety for both employees and for customers. Because, like, if a 6-year-old kid with a 4-year-old's body can use it to destroy an animatronic, how safe is it going to be for literally anyone else? Like, what's the point of the bucket anyway? Like, is it supposed to contain water? Because, like, when it falls on Monty, it breaks the catwalk that we're on, And honestly, water, especially in that quantity, is going to be a lot heavier than some ball pit balls filled with air. Seriously, who the living hell thought that this was going to be a good idea? Or like, how have they not gotten fined for it yet? Or like, how have they not fixed it if they have gotten fined? Yeah, there are guardrails on the catwalk, but that doesn't matter if there's a giant bucket that can destroy the catwalk that you're standing on and then cause you to fall to your death. Especially when falling that distance just like severed Monty's legs from his torso. Anyway, sorry, rant aside, maybe once Freddy has Monty's hands, we're able to investigate the rest of what happened to Bonnie. Maybe we get into Monty's green room and then kind of like suss out what went wrong. And no, that was not an Among Us joke, despite me constantly making Among Us jokes about this game because Gregory is sus, he vented. But like, maybe in the end, we would find Bonnie's casing with a missing arm and a missing leg, and then we would know for certain that I'm right. Now, do I think that this is going to happen? Really? I'm not sure. Like, a lot of people seemingly want to see Bonnie in this game, so much so that they are replacing Monty using mods. But also, the idea for the Choose Your Guardian DLC is also very popular, and perhaps even more popular than the others. However, since we know DLCs to be canon add-ons, I'm guessing that a Bonnie investigation would be more likely than switching up the robot who protects us, since honestly, the whole Bonnie thing has less lore implications in the long run. Having someone other than Freddy protect us just seems like it would be too messy, especially with the fact that we would have to steal the other bits from the animatronics, and if we pick Roxy, then we have her eyes the entire game, which is kind of cheating. But like, you know, you get it? You do understand what I mean here? Like, I like the idea, but it's probably just gonna have to be a mod instead of actual canon DLC, okay? I hate to say it, even though I say it every time I talk about this mod. The FNAF DLC is fast approaching. Kind of. Maybe. But the question we're all left asking is, what exactly will this DLC entail? Will there even be a DLC? At this point, when it comes to FNAF, we have no idea. Mostly because the series is in an incredibly weird place currently. With seemingly no official successor after Scott, where could Steel Wool take the story to have it make more sense? And will that direction involve the game's secret main antagonist, Burntrap? That's what we're exploring today. Just like with any of these possible DLC videos, whether it be about the Choose Your Guardian concept or Glamrock Bonnie's return, we first need to check to see how possible it is with where we end up at the end of the game. Well, as far as we can, since the Pizzaplex, or at least part of it, seemingly gets destroyed at the end of the true ending. So, when we choose to stay, is it possible for Burntrap to have more of an impact? Well, it's not as clear as you might think. See, Burntrap, at this moment, is sat in the FNAF 6 pizzeria that's underneath the Pizzaplex, charging in his charging station. However, he only seems to come out of it when ourselves along with Gregory jump down into the final area. So to make this DLC possible, well, we would have to have him wake up for some other reason. Now technically it's unknown if when we drop down Afton ironically wakes up at the same time or if we triggered it somehow, but given that it's FNAF, I'm guessing that us triggering it is more probable and more in line with what the series' story was intended to be. So for this DLC to include him, Afton would need to wake up for some other reason, be it maybe a power surge or something that messed with his power supply or potentially gave him a boost that he needed to get out of the charger early. Now that Afton is out of his charger for whatever reason, assuming that that's where the story goes, what could the possible DLC stories be? Well, I'm guessing that Burntrap would somehow be able to get back into the Pizzaplex, despite Freddy telling Gregory that the elevator would only be good for one trip. But who knows, maybe that's because of Gregory and Freddy's weight combined or something like that. Maybe with just Afton in it, it would be able to make more than one trip, since after all it is how the animatronics were getting down to dig the tunnel in the first place, right? Anyways, Afton probably would get back up and then start roaming around the Pizzaplex, probably corrupting anything that he could. This would probably lead to another ending where we would either defeat Burntrap in the Pizzaplex or then maybe have to lure him back down into the basement. But in my eyes, in my mind, I think that we should have to lure him down to the parts and service room. Mostly because Vanessa told us to come to the main stage once we got into the elevator when trying to escape after you get Roxy's eyes. But if you listen to Vanessa, then go check the stage. There's nothing there for you. It just seems to be a time waster so that Moondrop has a better chance of getting you. But in my eyes, this seems like more of a game mechanic thing than an in-game thing. Like in the game universe, all he would need to do to catch you is just make it to you instead of waiting until it's exactly 1 hour. So there would have to be some reason that she called you there in the first place, right? Well, maybe it's because that's where Burn Trap was, and now we gotta bring him down to parts and service to dismantle him and end his spree for good. Maybe we can get some main antagonist action where the animatronics roaming the Pizzaplex are instead replaced with the main villains of Burn Trap and Vanny. Kind of like Nightmare Fredbear, Nightmare, or Nightmarion style, since those characters also replaced all of the villains in FNAF 4 when they were out. This would definitely make Vanny and Burn Trap seem more powerful and important than the other animatronics, especially if this only happened once we destroyed all three, since then we would assume that they were kind of tossed aside or forgotten since they didn't really work anymore. And I think that this would also help Burn Trap be more menacing, because honestly, looking at him, this is the scariest design for Afton yet. This is the most terrifying version of Springtrap that we have ever had, and we don't actually have to or get to interact with him directly. We don't have a reason to really be scared of him. He doesn't chase us, he doesn't have any real power over us, we burn him from a distance through monitors while pressing buttons, and he only tries to take control over Freddy instead of coming after us, which is what helped us think of this character as a waste. But having him chase us around the Pizzaplex would be an excellent way of making him more unique and terrifying, especially if periodically he would cause us to be forced out of Freddy while trying to take him over, and the only way that we could save Freddy would be maybe to press another button at a save station, or maybe try to activate a save station or something like that, something that could possibly jam Afton's frequency or signal or something along those lines. Making Afton a bigger villain would definitely be a better way to go in my eyes, because this man was underused and really kind of wasted in this way, especially if they do decide to kill him off permanently, since now he's just sentient code after having his soul burnt out of FNAF 6's fire. But having him chase us around the Pizzaplex and making the Freddy mech useless at times and really just being a horrifying antagonist would really help sell how terrifying this version was intended to be, and something I feel should have been in the base game, since, you know, he's the most iconic character in the entirety of the FNAF series, you know, purple guy, the main killer, something that was teased in the very first trailer and then yet maybe had 5 minutes of screen time, unless you're bad at the game like I am, and then in that case he had like 30 minutes to an hour of screen time. And don't even get me started on how horrible his death was, if that was even a death. Killing this man off screen is probably the rudest thing I think Scott could do to me. Like, I want to see this man, and this man being William, die. I want to be the one who causes it. I want to see the light leave his eyes. I want to see that last bit of code float into the air with his demonic purple eyes and then dissipate. Okay, I want to watch him suffer. It's the least that he deserves. Plus, with Burn Trap and Vanny roaming the Pizzaplex, maybe we could actually figure out what happened to those other missing kids that potentially drew us to the Pizzaplex to begin with. I mean, Vanny says in the first trailer that they're supposed to be our friends, right? Like, I don't know, maybe she got to Gregory's orphanage, or like kind of like raided it with a bunch of animatronics. Man, like a World of Warcraft raid, but with animatronics. I don't know. Like, maybe this is the way that Vanny's room above Phaser Blast would be open for closer inspection without the Phaser Blast ending button. Maybe there's an additional secret room or duffel bag or like a present with some story lore that points to what really happened to those kids, and then we can actually go and try and figure it out. If they were killed maybe, or kidnapped, or used to fuel Afton. I mean, this could be a really good way for the story to really establish itself, since, you know, the game was released unfinished despite being a couple years late. Maybe something like this was always intended, but since there were so many delays, we had to deal with an underused and hardly terrifying antagonist despite the ability to make him so much more. But then again, maybe I'm just enthusiastic and expecting too much from these games, which may or may not be a bad thing.